Yes, we want to welcome Senator Ken LaValle and his challenger, Greg Fischer.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we're going to have Senator LaValle will do the opening.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for hosting this, and for those that are still here, big thank you. We'll make sure that you don't fall asleep. Being a representative is all about working with people, listening to people, and getting things done and things resolved. For this community, listening to people and working with people on the Good Ground project was just an absolute joy. It will be a project and for this community and those in the surrounding communities. It has been a pleasure working with people. It's a kind of convoluted. Assemblyman Thiel and I put money in to repave Main Street, so there is some state money in that project. Working with the school district to make sure Hampton Bay School District is a very special district, and we have put extra money in there so that we can have a quality education and keep within the tax cap. A strong proponent of the tax cap. Also, as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Higher Education, Southampton Town has a campus from Stony Brook, and I hope within days or weeks we will see resolution to have Southampton Hospital become integrated into the Stony Brook University Hospital. That will bring Southampton from a medically underserved community to one that will have full service medical services, bring in specialists, and make sure close to home you will have the healthcare system that you deserve.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Fischer. I live in Riverhead Town. I have 4 children, 2 millennials, 30, 29, and 2 younger ones, 9 and 12. And I have 3 degrees in business, 35 years in business consulting with big companies like Pete Morrick and Price Waterhouse. Plus, I've owned my own companies, consulting companies, accounting companies, computer companies. And I have a theme for this campaign. It's called Vote for a Turnaround. Because one of the things that's going on in this island, which is affecting us all, and especially future generations, is the economy. These are business issues. Now, besides my resume, I also do work with SCORE, Service Corps retired executives, semi-retired now. And we take people from unemployment and set them up in business. So that's a hands-on thing we do to help improve the economy and make things better for folks. As well, I've been taking on auditing of school districts, including Hampton Bays. So I've gone to different school districts together with other people who have an interest in making sure that the school district's accounting is correct. And we find huge problems. No bid contracts, no compliance with certified payroll. The compliance in Hampton Bays is actually dreadful. You know, it's like 20%. Really bad. So, in Riverhead now, we've gotten them so badly that they don't want even to comply with the Freedom of Information requests. And we've gotten one vendor prosecuted, can't put in another state contract for 5 years. Their executives aren't supposed to either. That spiders out into other companies. We have 12 other companies on deck we're about to get. So with Mr. LaValle on an education committee, why didn't he find it from the inside and I can find it from the outside as well? He touts higher ed. Well, you got to look at the numbers. The numbers are huge. The numbers are such that at some colleges it costs over $1 million per graduate. Really. And I'll go through the details if anybody asks me the question, how did I get to that number? But it's for real. At $1 million per graduate, close the place down, send them all to Harvard, save half the bill. So, you know, we have a real problem. We have a lack of oversight throughout the whole state. It's really, really awful. So, you know, with my accounting background, with my business background, I'm looking to stimulate this economy, cut taxes, but for real, not like just a conversation. Thank you.
thank both of you. Now, the first question that we'd like to pose, Southampton Town is unique in that it has a separately elected Board of Trustees, tasked as guardians of the bottomlands, waterways, and the easements to these ocean beaches and waterways. With the current pressure on public access and increased activities proposed concerning current and future beach nourishment, will you support and help to acquire an independent tax line for the Southampton Board of Trustees? And then secondly, will you support new legislation to maintain the authority of the Southampton Board of Trustees?
You know, you don't fool around with the trustees because they go back to the colonial time, and they have powers. There have been court suits, you know, challenging their authority. The issue of whether there should be a separate tax line, that's something that we need to have a discussion locally with the town board and the supervisor and council members to see whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Generally, by having a separate tax line, you become more accountable of people, and if that indeed is the purpose, then that certainly is a good thing.
Thank you.
I agree with protecting the powers of the trustees. Often they're some of the most respected members of the community, and they are stakeholders, and they are people of high integrity. On separate tax lines, I agree with that. The problem is often that those separate lines, those restricted funds, are pillaged. I filed notice of claim in Riverhead because the town board there was actually pillaging the water department, which they sit as dual board. They're on the water department and the town board at the same time. So when they move monies from one to the other, that's 2 felonies with 1 shot. So they also pillaged ambulance, and then they pillaged highway, and then we had accidents and people died. And when they pillaged the water department, another thing that happened is then they had to shortcut testing where they were going to site wells. And in some cases they bought property for some reason other than water quality because they hit perk. And then they have to do massive remediation. So I like separate tax lines, but I also like enforcement of those separate funds. It's important. When they pillaged ambulance, for example, I just found that unconscionable. They're pretending to be Robin Hood, but ambulance, you know, by not raising some taxes, but they're taking money out of ambulance. Ambulance raises money by charitable events, envelopes, street fairs. So they're robbing the poor box, pretending to be Robin Hood. It scares the heck out of me, and they got away with it. They got away with it. They stopped doing it with my notice of claim, but they got away with it. Then the comptroller found them doing it and said, don't do it, but it's bad. So we need people in Albany that are going to really put the hammer on this. It's criminal. Thank you very much.
Would you like a 1-minute rebuttal?
I need 2 seconds.
Okay.
I don't think we need to put the hammer on anyone. I think we need to have a discussion with people and come to a rational decision on how we will proceed.
I would like a rebuttal on that.
All right, 1 minute.
Yes. Well,
Or
what
2
we're dealing
seconds
with,
if you can.
what we're dealing with is malfeasance with attorneys involved. The town attorney, the supervisor in that case is an attorney. So they know what the penalty is for breaching trusts and moving money around illegally. So it's a matter of enforcement. Thank you.
Okay, first question from the audience. What would you do to make a difference in Hampton Bays? And what happened to Dune Road project? What happened to the Dune Road? It should be project.
Okay, you go first.
I know Congressman Zeldin has stepped up to actually get Army Corps of Engineers to do some shoring up a Dune Road. it's a big issue. I'm kind of a stakeholder out there. I have an additional residence on Dune Road, and it floods. So something has to be done.
First part of the question was about Hampton Bays. Hampton Bays is a very, very special community in a very special First Senate district. Good Ground Park is the kind of thing, working with people, make that happen. Work with people to make sure school district continues to challenge its students and keep the tax rate at a good level under the tax cap. In terms of Dune Road, there have been proposals by the town, and it's where do we get the money to raise Dune Road, bring it up. So I think that's a growing possibility as funds become available, and even part of the Montauk to Fire Island proposal, we could find some monies to deal with that and make sure that the dunes along the road are solidified and the beach before it solidified. So I think that was a good question, whoever asked that, and I think there's help on the way.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. What have you done or would you do to consider improvement to anti-terrorist policy in New York? Anti-terrorist.
You know, number one priority is to make sure that we have proper law enforcement, proper intelligence. And one of the things in the intelligence area is I have a bill that we've passed in the Assembly to make sure that all students from foreign countries that are registered to attend one of our universities actually attends. And if they do not show up, then we begin a process to see where they are. So strong law enforcement, strong intelligence system, and I think you know each and every citizen has a responsibility to be vigilant and communicate anything that is out of place.
Safety and security is, of course, one of our most important concerns. My brother Conrad, who's a world-famous doctor, trains more doctors than anybody else in the world, actually has an organization called Stop the Religious Violence. So it's an issue I'm kind of familiar with as well. If you check my personal website and my campaign website on Facebook, you'll find that I just did a series of TV shows that were set around the Islamic world. The issue here is having Muslims look out for the problem. And so if you find generally, when you look at the Taliban, you look at Al-Qaeda, these are not really Muslims any more than KKK members are really Christians. These are people that are violent. These are people that are thieves. They're stealing property. They're stealing oil. They're hiding behind religious stuff. But that's not really, it's not really an Islamic issue. These are people using religion as a shield. So to the degree that they're doing that, I've tried to have conversations with Pakistani communities and other communities, and you'll see that on my website. One of the shows is actually is up there now about that community policing itself, because we can't possibly afford to police it from the outside. It's just it would be a runaway taxpayer cost to do it, and I don't know if we'd really be able to do it. So I'm trying to set up systems to have it policed from within. Thank you.
going to pass on the rebuttal.
Will you support a parent's right to refuse vaccines because of their religious beliefs?
Yeah, I absolutely do support that. I think parents should have the ultimate authority in their child's care. If there was an epidemic or an emergency situation, that might be overruled, but under normal circumstances, I support that. As well, Senator LaValle does have a bill pending supporting parental rights in vaccine administration. And I actually sponsored a movie that came into Hampton Bays, cinema here, a couple weeks ago, called Vaxxed. Now, interesting thing about that movie is it was in the AMC theaters, and it was sold out. But they canceled it because this Chinese businessman bought AMC theaters, and he also owns some of the pharmaceutical companies that make the vaccines in China. So we sponsored it independently out here, and of course, the admission price paid for everything, but took the gamble. And the movie's very powerful. It talks about the statistics of harm. It doesn't talk about the pathology of the harm, but just how to prevent the harm and how to make it all safer. So yeah, I'm fully behind the choice. I'm fully behind the whistleblowers that expose the cover-up of the statistics and what needs to be done to prevent injury in autism. Thank you.
You know, this is a very, very vexing issue. You're weighing religious rights, and that has always been a consideration, and then parental rights against why do we have vaccines to begin with? To protect the community at large. So it is one of these decisions that you have to really monitor, you have to weigh, because I always say, and I was both a school teacher and a school administrator, and I always told the faculty, do not argue with parents. They know their children. And so parent may have a very legitimate right based on the specific health issues with that student, and they will have to bring that to the fore and have a discussion. But it can't, we have to remember, we have a vaccination program to protect the community at large. But one size doesn't always fit all situations, so we have to be also mindful of that.
There's something very complex about vaccines and why we should not force them on children. And Senator LaValle has hosted family wellness days and other events at the community colleges, and they had vaccine booths there. The problem is parents should have an informed consent, and even at these events, what happened is so common. It happens in pharmacies everywhere, every day, that the pharmacists and the people administering vaccines don't provide the inserts and don't provide the information necessary. So there are genetic tests to tell if you're predisposed to having a severe reaction. They don't tell people to get those tests. We administer vaccines early on in life, and we have severe reactions because parents don't know, and they don't do the tests. So while I agree with the senator on parental rights, absolutely, we have a need to really reform how we administer vaccines. There is no informed consent. There's a lot of harm being done, and that needs to be fixed.
Thank you very much.
All right, last question for the senators. Other states have severe penalties of taking the title of the car on first offense, which has proven extremely effective in deterring driving drunk. What would you do or will you do specifically to reduce innocent victims from drunk drivers?
Education certainly is a very important thing that we need to do. When we look at almost every session in Albany, we strengthen DWI laws to make sure that innocent individuals do not pay a penalty with their life. And so I have supported tough penalties, and for those who leave the scene of an accident, the penalties should be even heightened. We've passed that in the Senate. Proper rehab programs for individuals are important. I just had the opportunity to attend an AA meeting. Someone who was celebrating their 22nd year of sobriety. And so it can be done. I mean, I witnessed lots of people who was celebrating their 22nd year, their 30th year of sobriety. And family to make sure that individuals get the help that they need, so that we cut off their even being in a car drunk. And we just cannot tolerate it. It's one of the things in my office is that we try and be helpful to anyone. If anyone calls with a request for anything dealing with DWI related, that's it. There's nothing that I can do for them, because we just put people out on the highway and potentially kill innocent people.
I agree with Senator LaValle on the issue of education. My children are scared straight. You know, I scare them about drugs. I scare them about alcohol, and it keeps them away from it. You know, my older children have never had a problem, and they don't go near any of that stuff. No drugs, no alcohol. So, and my second son actually converted to Mormon, but who knew? But happens in the best of families, even some of them Republican. So I also believe that this is really a mental health issue. This is a severe mental health issue. And there are a lot of people that are genetically predisposed to alcohol and substance addiction. So we need to deal with that and be more compassionate about that and get the proper programs. Also, I'm a firm believer in interlock devices, even on first defense. I know there's been a lot of shenanigans on who gets those contracts, and it makes it more expensive to get them. So I would like to get to the bottom of that and make them cheaper and more easily available. You can buy one now for a few bucks. It hooks on your cell phone. So why can't we have them a lot cheaper in the cars on first defense? So I would like to be more aggressive about it. I know it's an issue. Thank you.
We're going to pass on the rebuttal, and then if we could just do our closing statements now.
Boy, first half the people leave, and now they're rushing me out the door. Must have been something I said. But so I do respect Senator LaValle for the work he's done on environmental issues. We've made great progress on that. Things are going very well. I believe there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the details of the nitrogen reduction plan. We could create separate plumbing for what creates most of the nitrogen, which is bathroom waste. We don't have to process the whole house water, and we can bring the cost down of this quite rapidly. On bigger parcels, we can put in leach fields. So there's a lot we can do that we haven't discussed, but Senator LaValle certainly did groundbreaking work on environmental, and I appreciate that personally. But for the next decades, the challenge is economic. And if you even look at Senator LaValle's flyers, there's nothing there about the economy. Talks about tax rebates, but that's taking a few bucks and giving you a few cents back. Nothing about the economy at all. And that's a problem. It's a problem through both of the state houses. We don't have people with that experience. They don't have auditing experience. they don't have business experience, and until you start to elect those people, it's going to keep in this direction, the downward direction. It's been going down for a long time, and as well, you need hyperactive advocates, your point man out there. You need somebody that's going to go to the town and advocate, going to go to the federal government and advocate, and say what we need out here. So some of my proposals are like the Cross Sound Tunnel. I'd like to see that happen. I have some specific plans for that. Double-decking sections of the Long Island Expressway. These are absolutely necessary projects if we're going to develop Long Island. And there's a lot more. But they're business solutions to economic problems. And they're not in the discussion. So that's what I'm looking to bring. We have to fix this economy. We're losing too many of our youth. It's not sustainable on present cost. With costs rising and income stagnant, it will not sustain. It can't. So we have to do something corrective quickly. Senator LaValle's been in office for 40 years. He's proved his abilities in certain areas. But the area of most challenge now is economic, and we need a change. There's no choice. So thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Those of you that hung in, I mean, you represent the whole of the area. That's amazing. Get out and I'm sure you talk to everybody. But thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for staying around and listening to us. The first thing I want to say, and I learned this from my colleague Fred Thiel, is I would like your vote on November the 8th. So I ask for your vote. There are a lot of things that have been done to earn that vote. On the ballot, you will have the Community Preservation Fund amendment that Assemblyman Thiel and I passed the original Community Preservation Fund, and now an amendment to allow up to 20% of the monies for the protection of groundwater, surface water, extended out to 2050, and protections in there that we do not want to use this to extend development. I was the sponsor of the Farmland Preservation Act, the Pine Barrens Preservation Act, and I feel that my motivations were to make sure that the East End stayed in the way it is today and for years to come. Economic development is very important. That's why the Southampton campus was put out here, so that we would create some jobs and opportunities. And also, a lot of money was put in the budget to create a research corridor. And by doing that, there will be a lot of jobs that will be created in the interim. My motto, and Fred has heard this, First District first. I represent 6 towns and 2 forks, and I do so with your input and your contributions to make our place a better place.
I can't thank you two enough, Senator LaValle, Greg Fischer. We so appreciate your coming tonight. Now, last